Morning students. So today I'll continue with the inline member function. Yesterday I discussed about arrays of class object. So I discussed about this program, and here you learn that how an object can also be declared as an array, right? So here so you saw that the object name is created as an array. So we saw that a huge advantage regarding that program, right? So today I'll discuss about the inline member function. Now this is a bit different from what you have seen. So still then, this is also very important, just like this area of class object. Okay, this inline member function is also very important. Similarly, like you have this class of array, and then this inline member function. Okay, this also you have seen uh, at the beginning of the program. However, the word inline was not used. This we have implemented from the very beginning of classes and object program. However, this word inline is just used now. Okay, so as I explain more about this, you will understand what it means. Now, uh, so most member functions can be made to be inline. Okay, so you can see here most member functions can be made to be inline. A function is defined as being inline. So you see that a function can be defined as being inline. Okay, so meaning, okay, by default member functions, when they are defined inside the class, they are treated as inline. Now, if its implementation is submitted into the code where the function call was made in the employee class, that is here, the class DA, calculate HRA and calculate gross functions could be made inline. So that is what we'll see through the inline mem. Though the inline member functions are used exactly as others, no function calls are made in the compiled code. Rather, an inline member function statement are inserted directly into the compiled program. So if you see in this program, the inline member functions are inserted directly into the program. So what does that mean? Now, when a function is defined inside a class, okay, when a function is defined inside a class, here this is function declaration. So this is where the class definition ends, right? So here there is no inline member function defined. So it is the member functions are defined outside the class, these two. Okay, so when it is defined inside the class, like example this one, suppose this one here in the previous example, here this member function void calculate DA, this is function definition. So this function is defined inside the class, right, inside the class. So why this is member function declaration and this is definition? Why? Because this function has a function body to be executed. So in this case, this can be defined as inline member function. Okay, so when a function is defined inside a class, it is treated as an inline function. Okay, so by default, a member function, when it is defined in a class, it can be considered as an inline member function, provided that the body of the function is quite small to be executed. The program logic to be executed is quite small. Okay, so normally only small functions are defined inside the class definition. So you can see here the function body to be executed is quite small. Okay, otherwise if it turns out to be too large, okay, then the inline member functions, the compiler ignores the request. Keep in mind that inline member function is not a command, it is more like a request to the compiler to be executed. Okay, so now The member functions of a class are inline by default. Okay, uh, even even if the inline keyword is not used, like in the previous program. So inline function is suitable, like I said, for small functions only. Okay, now an inline function, okay, an inline function, uh, it is actually where the compiler copies the code from the function definition. Okay, copies the code from the function definition. So from the function definition directly into the code of the calling function. So you can see in this particular program, okay, yes, so you can see in this particular program the three inline function body definition. So what is this inline? Okay, so like I said, okay, an inline function is where the compiler, okay, the compiler copies the code. That means the function body, this from the function definition, that means from the function definition the code where this function body, as you can see here also, the function body to be executed is quite small. Okay, that will be copied to the calling function. Okay, now, so let's start from the beginning, the header file. Okay, and then the name of the class is employee. Okay, class is the keyword, employee is the user defined class name. Okay, this is the class name, which is user defined data type. Okay, though a class name is a user-defined data type, but it acts more like a built-in data type. If you remember the built-in data type, that is your primitive data types. Okay, so here you have a private access specifier. So under that you have the data members, so which is not accessible by the object. So here employee code, this is your class of array. Okay, so the name of the variable name is declared as an array. Okay, so array, so float employee salary, float HRA, and journals allowance. So here again public member functions. So these public member functions can access the private data members. So always remember the format of the class, the definition. You will have access specifier. If the access specifier is not declared, okay, then is not written, then by default it is private. So always the class keyword, the name of the class, the access specifier, the member functions. Okay, the member functions. So in this case, void input data and void display. Okay, so these are your two main member functions. One member function is to enter the data, and one member function is to display the data. We have already seen these two member functions time and time again in all the programs, where the return type is always void. Why? Because you are simply entering from the keyboard through this input data function and displaying through this display member function. So only as the cin and cout statement is run. But in the case of this, for the first so in this program you will see for the first time that the return type here is double in the member function, right? So but if you see the previous, if you compare with the previous programs, you will see that the public member functions or private member functions, the return type is void. But here you can see that here the return type is double. So which means that this member function, calculate DA, calculate HR, and calculate gross, is returning a value back to the main function. Okay, so that means there is a return statement, there is a return keyword associated with this member function. Though that means the function body of this is returning a value of type double, and type double back to the main function. Okay, so based on that, again, if we come back to the main. Now, always remember that the format of, though the program may look lengthy compared to your class 11 programs, the program is becoming more lengthy and lengthier. It looks more complex, but keep in uh, uh, keep in mind that it does not look as complex. It is just like your class 11 programs. Okay, where the main thing is like a header files. Okay, the variable then the main functions, or the function prototypes, the main functions, the variable declaration, initialization. Okay, then you process the data and then you output, right? Same like that. Okay, these classes and object program format also follows the same format. Okay, you have the class definition. In the class definition you have your data members declaration. Okay, and then you have your member functions declared. Now these are called as members. So these members, data members and member functions, belong to the object. Keep that in mind. Okay, I'm just repeating once again. The using the class, you use it to create the object, right? So a class creates an object, and only when the object is created, what happens, uh, keep in mind the object itself is a variable. So when the object is created or when the object is declared, then the compiler allocates memory space to be used up for these data members, right? So now here, as you can see that unlike in the other programs, here also see uh, the variables da, hra and gross has been declared here. Now, if you see the rest of the programs which you have come across, no way in I think that in the main function you will see variables being declared, except that the object has been declared using the class name, and then the object is directly initializing the data members, like emb code equals to 100, or you can see the object accessing through the member functions. Okay, but in here you see that the three variables are being declared here. Why? Because the return, the inline through using through the inline member function, the value is being returned, and then this in the main function only. Okay, the cout statement, that means the output is being displayed. So that's why you are declaring the variables here. Okay, so the object has been declared using the class name employee, and this here. So using the calling function, so since the data members are declared as private, so the only way to access through the member functions, right? So using the member function, uh, now you are associating the object and with the member functions through the dot operator. Okay, and if there's any parameter, it has to be passed. So this is your calling function. So so using so the calling function calls this function, function. Okay, now since this member function input data is a part of the class declaration, and since it is a prototype declaration, okay, since it is a prototype declaration, so the function body has been defined outside of the class, and the only way to identify it with the class employee is by using the scope resolution operator. So here a simple cout statement, enter the employee code. Okay, here you get to enter the employee code, enter the employee name using the gets function. Okay, so in order to prevent white space errors, so you use the gets function, and then you enter the employee name, you enter the employee designation, and then you enter the employee salary. Okay, now after that, control comes back to the main function, and then it executes the cout statement. Here's the employee's information. So this for loop will execute. Yesterday also I have explained to you how this for loop executes. Okay, and what is the use of this cout equals to command, right? This. So after this starts execution, the next step is another calling function. So you using the object, it accesses the object calls this function body. Okay, so this display, so it executes the cout statement and it displays the value: employee code, employee name, employee designation, employee salary. I hope that by now that you are familiar with this format, because you see that in every programs. Okay, uh, the same format is there. Okay, so I hope that I don't need to explain every now and then what it is, how it does. Okay, like example here, how is it that straight away you're writing down the employee code, right? because this member function can directly access the data members. So that's why in the calling function, no parameters or no arguments are passed. Okay, no parameters or no arguments are passed here. Okay, and another thing is that here, because why can't or any parameter or argument pass here is because like here no values are assigned here, right? Okay, so that's another thing. Now after that, here the formula is executed. Da equals to emb dot calculate da. So here this is your calling function. Now since this function body is returning a value back to the main function, so in the main function, in the calling function section, there must be another variable to hold the data, because this can hold only one data, right? So there must be another variable to store the data. So that is why this da variable is used, this hra variable is declared, and this cross variable is declared. Okay, so now when this calling function calls this call function, okay, now in the case of this, it has been declared here as inline. Okay, so like I said, inline can be used only when the function body is quite small. Okay, so what does it do? In the case of this, again, the return statement is there, 1.20 into employee salary. So after execution of this formula, okay, that value will be returned back as double data value. Okay, and since this calculate da is part of the member function of employee member function. Okay, so using the scope residue operator, now everything looks same except by this keyword inline. So what it does now, inline member functions are mostly used, okay, whenever like here uh, in this case there is no repeated call of this member function, but in case of some programs where the function needs to be called again and again and again, that is where and the member function body is quite small, that is where inline member function becomes useful. Okay, so what happens is that every time the calling function, okay, the calling function calls the call function, okay, what happens is that the compiler allocates the memory address, okay, or it passes the arguments or parameters to the call function. Then the call function has to declare the value, and then after that it process the function body. The function body value is returned back, okay, it's stored, it's returned back to the call function, and then the call function uh, address is again sent back to the calling function, like that. So what happens is that the process keeps on repeating, the lengthy process keeps on repeating, right? So in order to minimize this time load, okay, overhead, inline function is used. So what this inline function does is, okay, if you remember the concept of pass by value, right, in function, pass by value, pass by reference, pass by value. So what you do is that from the calling function, when you're passing the arguments to the call function, right, to the call function, what happens is that you're not passing the original value, but you're passing a copy of the value, right? So what happens is that when this function has been declared as inline, okay, this function body, the address of this function body, okay, is actually a modified copy of this address of this function body is actually sent back to the calling function, to the calling function here. Okay, so uh, so what I'm saying is, instead of going to and fro from the function call to the call function, okay, so a modified copy of the function body, a modified copy of this function body and this function body and this function body, okay, is put directly to the function call, to the calling function, this calculate ga, calculate hra, calculate gross. Okay, so that way, okay, there is no need to go to and fro again directly, since it can access the function body. Directly, since it can access the function body, okay, it can directly enter access the function body and execute the formula there itself. Okay, so that minimizes the time load. Okay, so that is what it means by this statement. Inline member functions are inserted directly into the program. Okay, so like that. Okay, so after that the values are directly entered to the variable da hra gross, so and it's stored here. Then finally the cout statement will be executed. Journals allowance da, okay, house rent allowance hra, gross salary gross. Okay, so here what changes do you notice in this program? Okay, apart from the use of the inline. Okay, so you can see that in the main function that the variables are declared. Now why are the variables declared? Why? Because the using the inline member function, okay, the value using the return statement, okay, using the return function, the value is returned back to the main function, and so from the call function to the calling function, right? And so that value has to be stored somewhere. So that's why these variables are declared da, hra, and gross. Okay, why? Because the cout statement is executed here. Unlike in the previous others program, you will see that in the function body itself, okay, there is no return statement. In the function body itself, the cout statement is executed, right? Here, uh, here cout statement is executed. Cout statement is executed, right? Okay, so no return value is being passed. So but in here there is return statement, right? Okay, so that is how you use this inline member function. Okay, now inline member function, yes, it's quite it is necessary only in terms of small member function body. Okay, now there are lots of there are advantages and lots of disadvantages also regarding relating with inline member functions. Okay, if you want, you can have a look, you can Google search regarding the advantage and disadvantage of these inline member functions. Okay, so I hope that you have understood a bit about these inline member functions. Okay, if you have not, okay, you can still contact me, you can message me, okay, on that. So just keep in mind that in every program there's a small slight modifications. Okay, so there's some small slight modifications. So with every changes, you need to keep in touch with all the programs. Okay, you need to go through all the programs so that to know what the previous program and this program, what is the difference. Okay, so you can see that as we progress, the program becomes, the complexity also increases, yet we can relate more with real life problems and find solutions. Okay, so next class I'll be discussing about object as function arguments. Okay, where we use the pass by value and pass by reference method. Okay, so I hope that you have understood. Okay, so yeah, that will be all for today.